Man, shoot, what do y'all want to hear? What did you say? Okay, this gentleman right here wants some Purple Rain. All right, sir, we'll give you exactly what you want. You want Purple Rain.
Well, I am here in Wendover at the Nugget Casino for a gig with Jake and the Heist. This one is a little bit interesting because there are no amps on stage.
Never meant to cause you any sorrow. Never meant to cause you any pain.
So you're probably wondering, how are you supposed to hear your bass if you don't have an amp behind you? And the answer, of course, is monitors. Typically, you'll have a wedge at the front of the stage that's pointed back at you so that you can hear what the band is playing. When you're doing in-ear monitoring, you've just got a pair of headphones that are plugged into something like this that receives a signal from the board and gives you what normally would have been going through that speaker, but into your headphones instead.
Yeah, let's take it slow, babe. We don't even need to rush. Need to
Of course, you can get really nice in-ear monitor headphones, but I'm just using these running headphones. They're just sort of designed to stay in your ear because I just already had them. You won't want to use something like this on stage, both because it just looks really dumb, but also these will not stay on your head. These are way less obvious, and these are the preference for sure.
Sure.
This kind of a setup is typical of more higher end productions, and it was a first time for me. It's kind of a bizarre experience, so let's talk about the ups and downs, starting with the pros. Firstly, the level of control is excellent. Every single band member gets their own independent mix that you can control via a phone app. Need less snare drum? You got it. Need more of your own bass? Just push the fader up. If you hate your keyboardist, you can just take him out completely. Christian, if you're watching this, I would never do that because I love you and I love hearing you play. If you've ever been in a situation where you couldn't quite hear what you needed, you'll know how valuable it is to have control over your own mix. In addition to hearing everything you need and nothing you don't, running IEMs gives you the ability to do things that you couldn't do with traditional monitors, like, say, running a click track to keep everyone in time. With in-ears, everyone on stage will hear it, but the audience will have no idea. Now, I know some people are going to say that they don't like playing with a metronome live. It kills the vibe, it kills the live feel, man. But it does make your band really, really tight, and also lets you do things like run tracks. This lets you do like extra percussion or extra instruments, or say run an arpeggiator with a synth because you're running to a predetermined consistent tempo. It's just a couple of little things that can make your band sound way bigger and more polished. Sound engineers also really like this setup because it means that they don't have to compete with the amps up on stage. If you have the guitar player who's like constantly turning their amp up over the course of the night, sound engineer doesn't have to deal with it because the guitar player is just turning it up in his own headphones. And all the sound engineer has to worry about is the house sound, what the audience hears. So in the end, you actually end up with a better show potentially. Unfortunately, nothing is without its downsides, and I will state the obvious. This is a slightly less fun way to play. There's just something about having all of the sound around you, hitting your body and vibrating everything, and you just cannot get that with IEMs. On this particular gig, we did 2 nights, and the first night we were being really, really conservative with our volume, and so I couldn't feel the kick drum in my feet or in my chest or whatever, and it made it really hard to lock in with things. The The other downside I found with this is that I was constantly tweaking things all night long. When you have access to your mix at your fingertips, there's always that temptation to be like, well, things aren't quite right, let me keep messing with this, that, and the other, and it can be really distracting. And there's nothing dorkier than like around with your phone on stage. Though I guess the flip side of that is that once you get it right in one place, it'll sound the same everywhere you go. So venue to venue, you'll never have to mess with it again once you do get it dialed in. One thing I'd noticed myself doing on this gig is because I could hear my bass so clearly, I was just constantly messing with the bass controls. Like, the tone is just a little bit too bright. Let me roll that off a little bit. It's like, what if I mix in just a little bit more bridge for this sound? Like, it's things that would be almost imperceptible out of the house, but because I was hearing it perfectly, I was very aware of the discrepancy between what I wanted to hear and what I was actually hearing. Another big bummer about doing live shows this way is that depending on how much isolation you have in your headphones, meaning how much it cancels out all of the extra noise, it can put this barrier between you and the audience, or even between you and your other band members. We had a ton of issues our first night because we don't really run a set list. Our guitarist just calls the songs as we're going along, and our drummer straight up could not hear him. What we ended up doing is setting up a second talkback microphone, so the guitarist had a mic in front of him so that he could sing backups, but then also a mic off to the side so that he could communicate just with the band. Of course, that only works in one direction, but it seemed to solve most of our communication issues for the second night. So is this setup right for you? Ultimately, I think it depends on what kind of a band you are and what sort of a gig you're doing. If you're just a rock band doing the bar circuit, then I don't know that you'd really gain too much from this because part of doing that is just the fun of having it being really loud and in your face. But if you're doing corporate gigs and you want to be as polished and as controlled as possible, then running ampless with IEMs is fantastic. The option of having a click or extra tracks is also really, really great, something you can't do with traditional monitors, and it really elevates your band in interesting ways.
I'm broken down. I need your loving, I need it now.
Anyway, I hope this was interesting to you. If you have any questions about doing this kind of a thing for yourself, do leave me a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer. If you would be so kind, I would love it if you just go ahead and push all the buttons down below. I think by now you guys probably know how much that goes towards helping out creators like myself. Thank you again for watching. I am AMP the bass player, and I will leave you in the purple rain.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That was for this gentleman here who very explicitly requested Purple Rain.
At least we had one with the word rain in it, right?
Well, I mean, he asked for Purple Rain, so.